everybody or anybody who becomes a Chief Justice anticipates that there might be a Council of State membership in their future, because that is how the Constitution stipulates.
Right.
A former Chief Justice.
But,
Yes.
but did you think it was going to come at this time and under this government?
I suppose so, because at the moment there's only 3 of us.
Right.
3 former Chief Justices, and Justice Wood, who's the first, actually she's the first Chief Justice to be appointed to the Council of State, because she retired in good health and able to do so. Yes, she served twice on it, and then I followed her.
Right.
Yes, and then there's Justice Anini Ebua. He's a man.
You think that played against him?
I don't think so. Maybe I really don't know what prompted the president. Maybe he was simply doing it in order of succession.
But I mean, when you were announced as a member of the Council of State, despite your position that already puts you ahead, as you explained, that you could be chosen as a member of the Council of State, you received a lot of criticism, so to speak. Did you surprise you?
I wasn't aware of that, but if there were, well, people will always criticize anything and everything. When we wake up in the morning and the sun is shining, there'll be criticism. When the sun is not shining, there'll be criticism. That's human nature. So, I wasn't even aware of it, but it does not surprise me.
To think that of all the members, you were the only one who was questioned by the press about you being a member of the Council of State.
Maybe they like me. They like my voice. I don't know. You have to ask the people who came to question me.
Right.
Yes, but all I knew was that I'm occupying a position which is a constitutional position, and which is a stipulated position for which I qualify. So that's about all I can say about it.
I mean, I think the connections people had tried to draw was that, okay, you were Chief Justice under an MPP government and a Council of State member under an NDC government, and people can't seem to put the two together.
Because Ghana, unfortunately, and I use the word unfortunately very advisedly and with a lot of personal sorrow, we've become so embroiled in partisanship that we read politics into everything. Because I became a judge of the Supreme Court under an NDC government. How about that one? When people choose to, they will forget that one and simply look at the excessively obvious. I don't think the president was particularly busy searching for my political affiliation. He would probably not find any. I know that in my career as a Supreme Court judge, there were times when I was accused of being pro-NDC, other times of being pro-NPP, whatever. People will talk about whatever they want to talk. What does that tell me?
Does it tell you that you are doing your job right?
Oh, definitely, I think so. Because it is not the job of a judge, especially a judge of the Superior Court, to take partisan positions. You know, simply put, what a judge does is you listen carefully to the facts, you research on the applicable law, you do your analysis, and follow the logic to the logical conclusion of what you're doing. And when you have a discretion in the decision you're going to make, you still have to exercise that discretion judiciously, as we used to put it. Yes, because no judge should be guided or governed by whims and caprices, because everything you're doing it, you're casting it into the present, but also into the future. You're affecting people's lives and livelihoods, and sometimes the nation. And so you cannot act capriciously at all.
Indeed. At the swearing-in ceremony, the chairman of the Council of State, Edward Duajaho, he mentioned a number of firsts that had to do the first time that a former Speaker of Parliament was chairing the Council of State, which brings me to want to know from you, what unique perspective do you think you're bringing on to the Council of State?
I think I'm bringing on a lot of wisdom, a lot of experience. I have a very, sometimes when people see my very detailed CV, they're kind of surprised that it looks like I've done everything. I've been in management, I've been in corporate life, I've been in private corporate life, I've been a private legal practitioner, I had been doing, even as a judge, I was very much involved in judicial education and so many different things, varied things, all of which one can bring to bear in whatever area of life one finds oneself involved in. That is how, by the time you reach my age, that's the scope that the normal person ought to have, a very broad scope to be able to give cogent advice on all sorts of things. You can't say, I've never done this before, so I can't advise on it, because from each experience, one draws some element of wisdom which can be applied subsequently to a completely different set of circumstances.
I see. And he said something also at the swearing in, that this Council of State will be different. It will be one that will work with a difference. When he said that, what meaning did you draw into that as a member?
The meaning I drew from that is that nobody should expect this Council of State to be a bunch of yes people, herd with a herd mentality, just following along, but being serious and steady and critical and applying utmost integrity to what we will be doing. Because if you recall, His Excellency the President, when he was making his remarks, one of the points he made is that the Council of State, as envisaged by the Constitution, is not intended to be a partisan institution. It's made up of people with experience, and it is set up to enable the president, whenever he needs advice, to be able to take advice and to trust their advice, even if it's not binding on the president. He should be made up of people whose advice he will respect, and therefore take into serious consideration before finally coming to his decision.
But how impactful do you think the institution Council of State has been over the years in this country?
It's been on and off. It's been, yes, that's all I can say. It's been on and off. But you see, because the whole idea of a Council of State is taken from our traditional setting, where so it's supposed to be similar to the Council of Elders that most schools, most chiefs have access to. Most of the time, apart from the chiefs or the elders who will be certain chiefs, the occupants of certain stools, there will also be some other people whom maybe the public might never even know, because when the person at the helm of affairs consults you for your view on something or for your advice on something, you don't go around broadcasting, oh, we were even asked. And no, you don't do that. It's not something to brag about,
Has that happened
good
before?
or bad, not as far as I am aware.
Okay.
The reason I'm giving that example is that because of the quietude of the council, per se, in a country where or in an age where we are more tickled by excitement and by sensation, people working in their little corner very quietly are not deemed to be interesting. And there'll be those who would, in my view, flippantly say, what's the use of these people? We haven't even heard of them. You don't have to hear of them. All that is important is that they should be people who are giving sage advice to the person at the helm of affairs.
So to what extent, I mean, can the Council of States be impactful if constitutionally the advice you give is not binding, neither on the president, on parliament, or on any minister?
Yeah, it's not binding.
So
But
to what extent then can you be?
Have you ever asked somebody, have you ever seriously asked somebody for advice? And even if you didn't take it, did you just walk away from it? No, you would think deeply about it first. At least the Council of State is there to serve, I won't use the word as the conscience of the nation necessarily, but as a body that is in a position to give to the president alternative considerations and like I said, sage advice, because wisdom plays a great part in that kind of advisory position. Yes.
There have been calls for the scrapping of the Council of State. What do you think about those calls?
I don't think that, I'm more for reforming it, revising it, I'm not too decided on that personally, but some are of the view that the Council of State should, in fact, even be converted into a second legislative chamber. So
like
that,
an upper chamber of
like
sorts.
an upper chamber, so that matters like the finances of the country, defense, those particularly key areas, they have a say in it before it is finally decided. And then, of course, one would have to also come up with a formulation which will ensure that even though they are there, they are still not there in a partisan capacity, but as because otherwise you might end up like some countries that we know who can become rubber stamps of the chief executive.
Would you recommend that one of those reforms be looking critically at the law itself that establishes the Council of States? Because when you read the articles of the Constitution 89 to 92, which established the Council of States, particularly 91 to 92, it would seem that the Council of States has a lot of power to call on the president on issues, call on ministers, call on parliament. But at the same time, it says that
their advice is not binding.
It's non-binding.
Yes. So on this matter of the effect or whether the binding or otherwise nature of the advice and consultation with the Council of State, I think there was a case of the Ghana Bar Association against the Attorney General, and that's where the Supreme Court did come up with that conclusion as to the non-binding nature. So it was an interpretation, and nothing stops the nation from deciding that when you're given an advice, you ought to take it. And if you don't, I don't think it should be a blanket one. If you don't take it, you need to justify.
Why not?
Why not? Because we no longer living in the days of because I said so. But the one we definitely living in the age of reason, so that where something a person takes a certain step, there must always be a reason that justifies it. Yes.
I mean, on hindsight, that ruling, the framers of the Constitution, do you think that they may have been wrong with that?
I was not on that panel.
Indeed.
and nobody applied for review, so I'm not going to talk about it. All that I'm saying is that vis-a-vis the Constitution as is, and vis-a-vis experience and working with the Constitution, it will be more desirable to reform or revise that part of the Constitution relating to the effect, the binding effect of the advice, yes.
Because, you know, especially when you look at how the Constitution is able to say, if the Council of States feels that it needs to inquire about any situation, you can do that.
Yes.
But then, you know, at some point, it's just advice you're given.
Right.
So,
and it's just advisory,
yes.
And you don't have to take the advice. Yes. In India, where they have a similar clause in their constitution, the courts took the opinion that yes, when they've taken their time to give that advice, you have to take it, and you have to justify not taking it, and you have to really justify. That is, I think, more of a good way forward for in nation building and assurance of good governance.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, the current president is looking to, you know, some reviews of the Constitution. Should this be one of those areas they critically look at? Is it so urgent that they must look at it crucially?
I think so. I think so. Not just because I'm now there, but I've always felt that why bother waste somebody's time to go and ask for their advice if you don't plan to take it. Yes. And as you pointed out, the council can actually even initiate. And I recall that years ago, at that time, I believe it was, I don't remember the specific year, but during that time, it was Justice Redu who was the Chief Justice. And that was when the Judicial Service was introducing alternative dispute resolution mechanisms into the judicial process. And he felt that people will not understand, they'll be wondering why the judges seem to be checking their responsibility and so on and so forth. And then we got an invitation from the Council of State that they've been hearing about this. And so could we come in? Yeah, and so I recall that myself, the late Justice Akwa, who later became Chief Justice himself, and then Justice Bamfordado, we were the ones who were sent to go and make a presentation to the Council of State, and they were quite. Firstly, they were surprised that we were that willing to come, and we didn't just come verbalizing. We had a presentation to make, but they realized that yes, things are changing, and methodology, when it changes to improve and enhance, there's nothing wrong with it. Yes.
I mean, from what we have said so far, it would appear that a lack of knowledge of the functionalities of the Council of States is reason many members of the public have said it has outlived its usefulness and are calling for scrapping of it. You'd agree?
I fully agree with you. There is not much knowledge about it, and really there are not many articles written about it and what they do. It's not really that it's a secret society or a secret chamber. It is just that its proceedings are in camera. But even then, there is provision made for whenever the council deems it necessary to actually invite members of the public to be at their proceedings. Maybe that should become a bit more often than has been.
To break the mystery that surrounds what the Council of State does. And so you're a member now. Would you be proposing that to your chairman, perhaps, in the sense that you bring the public closer to the functionalities of the Council of State at all levels?
Except that sometimes when you invite the public, they think they should be verbally participating. They can be observers. They can actually, it depends on the procedure one adopts, but sometimes you could actually even invite views. But for everybody to know that though we are inviting views, it doesn't mean that we are necessarily going to take the views. But normally when you invite views, you may take a little bit from here and a little bit from here and come up with something even more perfect and even more suitable. Yes.
I mean, is there anything that the general public could also do in terms of being involved, so to speak? Perhaps involved is a little too generous a word, but knowing and understanding how the Council of State's activities impact you, even at the local level?
It's important. In fact, one of the things that I think is very regrettable, and the occurrences, particularly after the elections, go to show that there's a bulk of our populace who really have no inkling what the democratic process is even about, and access to democratic positions, democratic institutions, and so on and so forth. People need to know more about it, People need to know more about the Constitution, even if, and that is what will even advise the discussion, the discourse on constitutional reform. You can't say, oh, reform it. Some people think reform means take this one away and bring another one. Others believe it's just maintenance. It's a review, revision, improvement process. So the democratic journey is an unending one. You come to certain points and you feel really good. We've done very well. Yeah, you've done very well, but you have not necessarily done the best. There's always there's always room for improvement. And let's face it, after over 30 years, after more than 30 years of having a constitution, and that's the longest time Ghana has spent under democratic dispensation, we need to even congratulate ourselves that, good or bad, it has served us. Time for improvement. And improvement doesn't mean scrapping. We could do it better. We could always do it better. When you were in school, I'm sure that on hindsight, you will realize that your best teachers were the ones who, when you come third, they will write, could do better. Because that kind of gave you a kick that number 3 is not necessarily where you should be. Yes.
Right. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look further into the workings of the 9th Council of State. Don't go away.
We searched far and wide and discovered the most extraordinary young talent for the all-new season of Talented Kids Season 16.
Okay, kuno wa charge del bobo blow pana wa doji.
This season promises more excitement, thrills, electrifying performances, and inspiring young talent ready to take center stage. Join us for the premiere of this season on Sunday, February 23rd, 2025 at 4 p.m. Talented Kids, free to play.
Sponsored by
Enapa Foods,
Tampico,
Flora Tissues,
Top Choco.
Welcome back. You're watching Hot Issues. My guest is member of the Council of State and former Chief Justice of this Republic, Justice Sophia Ekufu. Again, thank you so much for talking to us today.
You're welcome.
One of the reasons for the proponents for scrapping the Council of State is ex-gratia. I want to hear your thoughts on people's position that members of the Council of State do not deserve, so to speak, or should not receive ex-gratia after serving the 4 years.
I think this matter of ex-gratia is one of, I believe, policy. And I have not actually delved into the rationale for the current policy. Yes, I think it might be something that simply, sometimes we just get into certain practices and we just do it. Because the Council of State also comes under the Article 71 office holders. And that I don't know how to say it. That's a group of people. It's really the outcome of it's really the recommendations which get made by the committee that the president sets up under the article. That is what has generated all of this. For example, when I was, throughout the time I was actively on the bench, the 24 years I was on the bench, no one was expecting any ex gratia, anything. All you know is that at the end of your service, there were certain recommendations that had been made. And I believe that starting from the first committee that was set up, the emoluments committee that was set up, they came up with certain formulae which got spread across the board. I haven't actually read anywhere about what ex gratia means in the light of positions that are held for short periods of time. I don't know what the rationale is and all that. But if I were to apply my mind to things like ex gratia, which also come up in corporate life as well. What I recall from my time working for a multinational company was that there was this theory that when somebody works for you for a period of time, because of inflation and all the things that happen to money and so on and so forth, you're never really completely paid what you deserve. So at the end of your service, then it's fitting to give you something else. In some places they call it a golden handshake. In other places they were calling it end of service benefit and so on and so forth. But there has to be some justification for it. I haven't been able to identify the exact rationale for it because unfortunately the report of the committee on emoluments is always a secret report. That's the other thing. And maybe that could be...
It's time we change that?
I do believe so. I do believe so because why do we make so much fetish about knowing or not knowing what somebody's earnings are? And particularly in the public sector, it's the taxpayers' money, you know. And I remember doing a little bit of research on that with regard to judicial emoluments. I did that research in Canada, and I realized that there, to fix the emoluments of the bench, they actually hold public hearings and to come up with a certain whatever amount, and so the public knows.
But yeah. I mean, coincidentally, when you were Chief Justice, this issue also came up, particularly the ex gratia for our justices. And I mean, like you explained, it's not like your tenure is continuous until you retire. Mm-hmm. So what you got at retirement, would you consider it end of service benefit or your ex gratia every 4 years times the number of years that you have worked on the bench?
I think it was, I saw it as my end of service benefit, yes. Because it's a sort of, at least rationalizing it from the corporate world where I once worked. It's a holdover for your loyalty, for your longevity, for your long service, and all that, yes. Because strictly speaking, everybody's job otherwise is worth only this month's pay. And that's it. And when you have a system like that, keeping your workers loyal and wanting to go the extra mile for the institution or the organization is few and far between, yes. And if you look into the private sector, you will realize that there are some companies where people serve for 30 years. It's a private company. They have their qualifications. They can go off to another employment anytime they want to. But because of the cumulative effect of the holdovers, I'm using the term very loosely, people stay. Where I was working, they were surprised that I only did 10 years. People had done 20 years, 30 years, and they were receiving great rewards as a result of the long service. But
a former member of Toby Apede, who was on the Council of State before, about 3 years ago, returned his ex-gratia because he thought that after 4 years of work, he didn't deserve to receive 365,000 cedis from the taxpayer. His position was that he received monthly allowances. I mean, they called the salary 3 years ago for his service, for the meetings they attended. What do you think about that?
I recall him doing that, and that's also has set me thinking. And it's something which we need to debate. There's nothing wrong with debating on that, whether it's publicly debating it or researching it and making proposals about it. Like I said, it's part of the public, it's the public's money. And you look at the justifications, you look at those who are against it, and you also look at practices in other places, and then we come up with something.
I mean, it just might be something that returns to the table of the Council of State, because the president himself is interested in scrapping it.
Yes,
so perhaps
that would be very interesting. Yes,
indeed, very interesting. Should it go that way?
Yes. Yes.
Would it interest you to look into the conduct of our MPs? What we've seen so far about them?
Okay, that's more like a behavior and misbehavior. To look into it, I suppose we can wait to see what Parliament is going to do about it. And then if one feels that this is not enough, or this is just a slap on the wrist, or this is not going to cause a change for the better, then one can look into it. But Parliament is responsible for its procedures. That's the thing. And it is because of that unfortunately certain what you and I might consider bad habits and bad conduct is emerging, just because there's no freedom which is untrammeled. Every freedom has its limits, and I think Ghanaians saw the limits a couple of weeks ago. And if the council were to decide that it's going to look into it, could be fair enough, but one has to also walk with care so as not to be seen to be interfering with the processes and procedures of a self-regulating body.
We'll take another break. When we come back, we'll look at how the Council of State can help the Ghanaian people deal with corruption. Don't go away.
In these challenging economic times, it's all about the hand that writes the check and the one that earns it. That's why Top in 10 is dedicated to shaping the next generation of business leaders and professionals for impactful careers.
Top Intern Season 2 shows Sunday at 3 p.m. on TV3. Brought to you by Tampico.
Welcome back. This is still Hot Issues. My guest is member of the Council of State, former Chief Justice Sophia Ekufu. Thank you so much again for your patience. I was talking about, before we went on the break, what practical steps Council of State can take to help the Ghanaian people deal with corruption as it is in this country.
I think the question of corruption is something which is of concern to everybody and ought to be of concern to every institution. And because being a member of the council, I'm part of a group. So I'm not going to be making any prescriptions, but one of the things it could do would be to take a very close look at all the anti-corruption, because we've had anti-corruption laws and measures and mechanisms for a very over the years, way beyond even this current constitution. Yes. So we need to, the council could take a look at one, all the laws that we have, and then also take a look at various forms and types of measures that have been taken and are being taken in other places, which may seem to be more effective. See, because sometimes corruption has a cultural element. In my experience, that has been one of the things, because I remember within the judiciary, somebody asking me, no, not within judges, but somebody, when as a member of the judiciary, what's the difference between a bribe and a gift? And people feel that, oh, we are Ghanaians, we're very generous people, we like giving gifts, especially on occasions and things like that. But there are also other places where they like giving gifts too, but it is simply, they draw the line.
Right.
You don't be giving gifts, and that's all there is to it. Why are you giving the person that gift? Period. And whenever one makes a point like that, some people hit against it. Oh, but we are nice people, we like giving gifts. But I would sometimes, in judicial education, I used to tell new judges, ask yourself, if you were not a judge in that town, will that person bring you what they are bringing you? You know the answer. You don't have to take it. You don't need it. And that's all there is to it.
Very well. The president is supposed to make certain appointments in consultation with the Council of State. One of those appointments is to the central bank. The president has already made an appointment for the central bank. I recall that weeks ago, the appointee had visited the place to familiarize himself with the workings of the central bank. A lot of debate followed that exercise about whether or not that appointment by itself was wrongfully done. You have extensive knowledge based on the positions you have held in the past and what you hold now. What do you think about that debate?
Well, the Constitution, when it comes to the, I can only be sort of, what does the law say?
What does the law say?
And firstly, does the law say anything? And what does it say? And what it says is that the appointment is made in consultation. So at best, whatever it is, even if you see it as a process, that process does not conclude without the consultation of the Council of State. That's all there is.
Would you then say that the president was wrong in making the appointment because there was no Council of State?
I'm not going to, you think you're going to push me into saying something of that nature? No, I'm not going to make a judgment call on it. All I'm saying is that a process was not complete. Yes, and you know, sometimes when you're in a position to do something, you may be ill-advised, or you may have misunderstood the process, but you need to complete what you have started. That is all that I can say. So somebody might be spotted, somebody might even be named, but that person is appointed after a certain procedure, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, from what you're saying, then it means that unless that name has come to the Council of State, then there is no appointee yet. It's just somebody who's been named.
Yes.
Would that be the case?
Nominee, a designated person.
Person for that position,
Yes.
right? By the time the work of the 9th Council of State is over, what do you envisage this Council of State will be known for, will be remembered for?
For making meaning out of the existence of the, out of its existence, yes. In other words, we should not be seen as a rubber stamp or somebody's cipher, but that we have served the purpose for which the Constitution created the Council in the first place.
You've held some of the highest offices in this country. You continue to hold one because the Council of State is the highest advisory body we have in this republic. What worries you most about this country, and what gives you the most hope about this country?
What worries me most about this country is the manner manner in which you see, when this Constitution came into effect, some of us who had seen coup d'etats and lived under rule by decree and so on and so forth, we had a lot of hope, and you know, we were euphoric for democracy in this country. To a large extent, we have not done too badly, but we have not nurtured ourselves on the democracy in such a way that it would transform us and improve us, make us better people, make us more willing to listen to what some other person have to say, because it's a democracy and they have a right to say what they're saying. And we're becoming rather belligerent. I want it this way, and if it's not, so I'm going to break things. That is not democracy, and that is not a proper exercise of rights. Every right, Rights Management 101 teaches that every right comes with a duty. And the limitation of your right is where somebody else's rights are beginning. So if you don't want to listen to what somebody has to say because you have a right to say what you're saying, we have not even started. And that's why we have all these talk shows where everybody thinks if they shout and they outshout and they interrupt, and then they will be heard. But it's so nugatory. And so democracy has not improved us as a people. And it's reached a point where it looks like we're not even passionate about it enough to inculcate it in the next generation, who are among the most intolerant bunch of people that have ever walked on Ghanaian land. Respect is gone. Kindness, good things like what is right, what is kind, what is true, and all that. It's all
the humanness.
The qualities are going away, And many years ago, I remember reading somebody's article, and the person was saying, instead of democracy, you've got democracy. And unfortunately, it seems to me that that is what we're doing. And we need to, every good thing in this world needs to be properly managed, needs to be properly marshaled, needs to be properly safeguarded and protected. And we're not doing that. We're taking things for granted, and we don't value things, and we need to stop it. We need to call a halt. Otherwise, look at Galamsey. If we respected each other, Galamsey wouldn't even arise.
I'm honored you talked to us today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This has been Hot Issues, and I've been sitting with former Chief Justice, member of the 9th Council of State, and distinguished fellow of the Institute of Economic Affairs, Justice Sophia Ekufu. We'll see you same time next week. If you missed this, there's a playback on our socials and YouTube. Bye-bye.